Hi everyone. Welcome to my channel English for All Reasons Good, based on the CBSE guidelines and syllabus. Today we are going to do the poem Dust of Snow by Robert Frost. Though the poem it is a very short poem of just 8 lines, it has a very deep meaning. Before I begin, I remember one thing I would like to share with you. When I started this poem in my class, one of my students got up and asked, "Ma'am, since it is a very short poem, we will complete it in just 15 minutes. So rest of the period you will give us a free period, isn't it?" I looked at him, smiled and said, "We will see." So we started and we didn't realize when the period was over. So that means the 8 lines poem is not going to finish in 8 minutes. But here I don't have any intention to take your precious 40 minutes. So let's get started. Now before we start, we will talk about the poet and his style of writing. Now, this is very important for the better understanding of this poem. So, Robert Frost, he was born on March 26, 1874, in San Francisco. He was an American poet, well known for his realistic writings of rural life and his use of American informal speech. Now, his style, this is important. One of the research papers on Robert Frost remarks, Frost's poetry contains plain words but complex thoughts. In Frost, simplicity is present, but it is a deceptive simplicity. This is important. It is deceptive. In deceptive simplicity, Frost reveals the complexities of rural life in the attire of simple words. Many of his monosyllabic words were difficult to comprehend as these were coupled with symbolic meanings. Now this we will find in this poem. The body of his poetry wears an ordinary garment, but beneath it remains messages that needs one to introspect for clear understanding. Frost uses symbols taken from nature to express the intended meanings. Again, we will find this in this poem. So, Frost is optimistic in his attitude to life. Frost had all the complaints against nature, but still he would seek remedy from nature when he becomes fatigued of urban life. Now we come to Dust of Snow. So it is a short 8 lines poem with the simple words that seems to be expressing a very simple event. In its two stanzas of 4 lines each, an action takes place which may seem to be very insignificant. So let's get started. Now one thing more, before we go on to the poem, I would request you to subscribe my channel if you haven't till yet. Thank you so much. Now I will read the poem Dust of Snow. The way a crow shook down on me the dust of snow from a hemlock tree has given my heart a change of mood and saved some part of a day I had rued. Now, this is the pictorial representation of the poem. Let's read this and then we'll discuss it. Now, here you can see a crow. So, there's a crow that comes from nowhere. It came from nowhere. Whether he was already there in the hemlock tree and flew away as the poet passed under the tree, or it's landing on the branch of the tree and poet's presence under that tree, there was simultaneous action, is not known. So, this is not known whether the crow was already sitting in the tree and the poet happens to pass from there and then the crow shook or was trying to leave, or he was maybe shivering because it was very cold. So because of that the snowflakes they fell on the poet. So this is not known. We are not being told about this by the poet. Now second picture, that is the hemlock tree, and in the third picture you can see poet under the tree when snowflakes fall on him. So there is a crow that shakes down the dust of snow from the hemlock tree on the poet. This action changes the mood of the poet, and he says that it saved some part of his day that he had regretted. Now, this is, well, it is not so simple. Now, since we know that Robert Frost uses symbols for intended meaning, we must go deeper into this poem. So you can see the depressing winter scene in the picture. Now this picture, so this is the time that has been described by the poet. It is a winter season and there's a lot of snow. So, winter is usually associated with dullness, depression, and cold emotions. Thus, winter is actually a symbol for portraying such feelings and emotions. And same, they are being portrayed in the poem in the first few lines, rather. Now, before we take up the explanation of the poem, we must understand the symbols used by the poet. According to Nagler, symbol is something that suggests or stands for something else without losing its original identity. And symbolism is to convey that hidden meaning to the reader or to the listener. So, to convey his mood or emotion, the writer or the poet uses symbolism. It can be in a visual way, a visual image or gesture or words, etc. So, in a broader sense, the term symbolism, it refers to the use of one object to represent another. So, in a very simple words, it is use of one object to represent another. So some common examples of symbolism is like dove. It is a symbol of peace. So whenever we find dove, so we know that whoever has put that symbol is trying to portray peace. Then black is a symbol that represents evil or death. A broken mirror, it may symbolize separation. Sunshine, it suggests happiness. Rain suggests sorrow. And storm and clouds, they suggest despair. So these are some common symbols in use. Now, here in the poem, the symbols that has been used by the poet. So, first we will take crow. In many cultural views, crow is regarded the symbol of a death or at least deadly thing. In some other cultural views, however, it is also regarded as a symbol of blessing, although it is very rare to find such cultural views. So there are both types of views, but in most of the cultures, crow is taken as a bad omen or bad luck. So most of the time, crow is considered as symbolizing death, a sign of bad luck. So since a crow is not associated with goodness, it creates a bad atmosphere in dust of snow. Now, when seen in terms of significance that the crow plays in the poem, so there are few things to note. Crow, because of being black in color, harsh in voice, fearsome, and scavenger, it is considered to represent death. So, crow, for all these reasons, it is considered to represent death. Now we come to the second symbol that is used by the poet, that is hemlock. So after doing them individually, then we'll combine them together and then we will see that what all these are portraying in the poem. So hemlock is a poisonous tree. Similarly, the word hemlock, it also symbolizes something very scary that causes death. So when one remembers how Socrates died in the old times, one will soon remember that he was condemned to death by drinking a cup of hemlock. So this is the association. So you can see in the picture Socrates drinking hemlock poison. Now, winter and snow, as I've already discussed, winter is often taken to be depressing. Traditionally, snow signifies winter and the end of the growing season. But snow is also often compared to innocent or unblemished things in literature. Snow is also used to symbolize tranquility and beauty in some literature and media. So, snow is cold, but here is the difference: the white color of snow is sacred. It represents peace, tranquility, purity, and innocence. So, this you need to remember. Now, under this knowledge, now what could be expected? There's a crow, bad luck, and death. So it is signifying this. Then there's hemlock, again, poison. Snow is cold. Winter is depressing, sad, and gloomy. So the setting of the poem is a cold, gloomy, depressing winter day with heavy snowfall, with only one ray of hope, and that is the white color of the snow in contrast to the black color of the crow. Now, this is very important. Kindly keep this in mind. Now we move on to the explanation. So, stanza 1. The way a crow shook down on me the dust of snow from a hemlock tree. So, dust of snow are the fine particles of snow, and hemlock tree we've already discussed. It is a poisonous tree with small white flowers. So, in this stanza, we find the poet walking through a forest by a hemlock tree. As he passes by, a crow happens to shake some snow dust on him. So, this is what is happening in this first stanza. Whether it falls on his head or shoulders, that is unknown, as there is no specific mention in the poem. Also, the readers they are left in doubt about the bird's specific action, whether the crow was landing, shivering with cold, readjusting itself on the branch, or taking off. Somehow, a light dusting of the snow is the result, and it lands on the speaker. So, what the crow was doing there, that is not known. So, the crow was there, something the crow did, and snowflakes they fell on the poet. Here, the two agents of nature, the hemlock tree and the crow, they are symbolic of sadness and gloom, just like the poet's mood is in the opening scene. So, in the opening scene, it's a gloomy scene. Poet's mood is also similar. So, the poet in this stanza has set a scene, a winter day, a hemlock tree with snow on it, a crow sitting in the tree. There is some action also. Small particles of dust they fall from the tree because of the crow and land on him. But rest is all guesswork. So how the crow does it, we don't know. Now we come to stanza 2. Has given my heart a change of mood and saved some part of a day I had rued. Now, rued means held in regret. So, for some reasons unknown again, the author was having a terrible day. But the falling of the snow on him lifted his mood instantly. So now what happens to the poet? How his mood is elevated, again it is not known. But it seems that with the shaking of dust of snow from the tree by the crow, he is shaken out of his problems. It leads him to see the brighter side and not brood on his bad luck. The event somehow allows him to see life from a different angle. It is like he was absorbed in his thoughts, in his depressing thoughts, and when the snowflakes they fell on him, he was jolted, he was shaken, and he came out of those thoughts, and he saw a ray of hope. He saw life from a different angle. So also note that if on one side crow and hemlock tree they are expressing depressive mood and negativity, on the other hand snow, especially the white color of the snow, points to something positive, joyful, and peaceful. So the end is optimistic. So he had already spent his day, most of his day, in a bad mood, but the rest of it was saved by the crow and the hemlock tree. The crow, traditionally given a bad name as the harbinger of doom and fear. So hemlock also is a poisonous tree, but both become a catalyst for positive change. So this is very important. You need to note down these lines for your answers. Now, generally, hemlock tree and crow they are used for negative references, but the poet used them beautifully to portray that inauspicious things can bring joy and happiness too. One must not take things for granted and should be open to accept whichever way nature chooses to bless us. So, these are the messages that the poem is giving us. So, the poet explains how an act as petty as experiencing snow on one's body can brighten one's day up. So, let's come on to the central idea of the poem now. The Dust of Snow by Robert Frost is a small and simple poem with a deep meaning. It expresses the significance of small things in changing one's attitude. The poem reiterates that the little things in life can make huge changes in our future. It also shows that if we take the hard times of life in stride, eventually something will happen to change our situation into happier times. So the references that I have used is academia.edu and reference.com. Now the literary devices are left. I will be taking literary devices in part 2 of this lesson because otherwise the lessons become very long. So this is English for all reasons good. Kindly leave a comment as a mark of encouragement, and if you haven't subscribed yet, please do. Happy watching. I hope you liked the lesson. Thank you very much.